Time to be kings! Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. Welcome to my video talking about a brand new card from Guilds of Ravnica. And we're going to be talking about the King Cube as well. So what should we start with first? The card or the King Cube? Let's talk about the King Cube first. Just in really broad strokes. King Cube, you may be familiar with Cube, but you probably don't know King Cube, as I'm the only channel that has videos available on it. So I have a whole playlist about what the King Cube is. It's an absolutely fantastic format, my preferred format. I have a big, beautiful King Cube that I am absolutely in love with. Now, all you need to know for this video in terms of King Cube is that it's a 5-color format that gives you insanely easy access to all 5 colors. If you want to, you can have access to all 5 colors by the 5th turn, no problem. Easy peasy every single game. So, that being said, cards that use all 5 colors can be a lot more attractive when it comes to the King Cube. And that brings me to today's card, Chamber Sentry. This guy's interesting. X for a 0/0. He enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each color of mana spent to cast it. And X and tap it, remove X +1/+1 counters from Chamber Sentry. It deals X damage to any target. And for one of every color, you get to return Chamber Sentry from your graveyard to your hand. Now this guy's pretty interesting. Anybody who knows some older school cards will actually recognize that the ability on this card is Sunburst. It's literally just Sunburst, but for some reason, they've just elected to remove the keyword Sunburst from it. Probably because it doesn't actually add anything. I'll show you what I'm talking about. There's a card called Etched Oracle. It costs 4 colorless, and it's got Sunburst, so it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each color of mana spent to cast it. So clearly it's the exact same thing that we're talking about. Same kind of ability. And the Etched Oracle's ability is pay 1, remove 4 +1/+1 counters from it to have target player draw 3 cards. So speaking of King Cube cards, he is an excellent include. That's why I chose him as the example to talk about. But that it's interesting to note that they decided not to use the Sunburst concept anymore. They're still using the actual ability, but not the word. Now, this guy, just in terms of standard usability, it's not too shabby. I mean, he's not amazing, but it is a situation where they are coming out with the ability to support multicolors. You got all the dual lands, and with Mentor, I mean, you put him out for 1, and he's going to be mentored by guys with bigger power, so we can grow that way. That is kind of cool. Like, you can basically swing and keep growing with a Mentor and use it to ping. Like, there's little side benefits, but honestly, it's not the standard applications that got me excited about this guy. It's King Cube, because in King Cube, the being able to pay all the 5 colors to return them from your graveyard to hand is easy. And having 5 different colors of mana to cast him as a 5/5 for 5 or whatever. Basically, in the King Cube, he scales. He's a 1/1 for 1, a 2/2 for 2, a 3/3 for 3, a 4/4 for 4. Your choice all the way up, and you can use them to actually reduce the size of planeswalkers, kill opponents' creatures, damage your opponents as well. In terms of King Cube, Chamber Sentry is fantastic. 5-color cards rule in the King Cube. So I thought it would be interesting today to go through, because we've talked about King Cube before, and I know it's been a long time. Some of you have been asking, when are we going to talk about King Cube again? So again, I say go and check out the playlist. I even have some gameplay footage with some awesome commentary from the God King, which I really enjoy. It sits there just for those of you who are like, please don't drink in the video. It's just really one guy. I'm doing it, man. I'm doing it. All right. So let's talk about some cards that are awesome for King Cube if you're going to build one yourself that specifically tie into this 5-color Wooburg, as they call it, scenario. So we've already covered the Etched Oracle. Let's talk about Etched Monstrosity. This is essentially 5 colorless for a 5/5 creature when you first put it out, because it comes into the battlefield with 5 -1/-1 counters on it. So unless you're playing with specific colors to take advantage of the second ability, it's really not that great. It's okay, 5 mana for a 5/5 is okay, but it's nothing to write home to your mother about. Dear mother, I got a 5/5 for 5. Why are you writing me, Billy? That wasn't worth my time. I would have aborted you, but your dad wouldn't let me. Anyways, speaking of this monstrosity instead of that one. So, for 5 mana, one of each color, you remove 5 -1/-1 counters from that monstrosity, and target player draws 3 cards. Now, you notice something with both of the etched cards. They let you draw cards through removal of counters. I enjoy the contrast. One is the Mirren version, and one's the Phyrexian corrupted version. I like that the one comes with plus counters, and you remove those to get the drawing the knowledge, and the other one comes out corrupted, and you remove some of that corruption to draw and gain knowledge. It's a very Phyrexian concept, and the artwork of etched monstrosity is amazing with the different colored like moons or suns, whichever it is. It's suns, right? Yeah, it's the 5 different suns of Mirrodin are all different colors. So that's pretty cool. I definitely enjoy the flavor behind it, and card draw is incredibly powerful in King Cube. So etched monstrosity is really, really strong. Now, there's a recent card actually from Dominaria that uses all 5 of the colors. That's really fantastic for King Cube, and that's Joda, Archmage Eternal. He costs a blue, a red, a white, and 1 colorless, which is easy to pull off in the King Cube. He's a 4/3 flyer, which is a pretty solid body, but its ability is you may pay 1 of every color rather than pay the mana cost for spells that you cast, which means every spell in your hand costs no more than 5. Unless it's like an X spell or has something where it's going to care about that, almost everything costs 5, and the King Cube has insanely expensive spells. So being able to cast them cheaply like this is ridiculously strong. And I know this for a fact. It's not just a theory that I have because Joda's been out for a little bit. I've seen it in practice for a long time because this ability isn't new. It actually existed on Fist of Suns from 5th Dawn. And that card is the exact same thing as Joda, except it's a 3 casting cost artifact. So it doesn't have a body, but it comes out faster. It's easier to get out, and it's harder to get rid of. So it's actually, Fist of Suns in the King Cube is actually stronger than Joda in most cases because there's a ton of removal and it's easy to wipe out creatures. But they're both absolutely fantastic cards. I love Fist of Suns. It's actually hilarious. It kind of makes me think of the Infinity Gauntlet, right? From like Thanos, kind of, now that I'm looking at it. It's been a while since I looked at it. But that's an absolutely amazing King Cube card. And there are actually some other cards specifically from 5th Dawn that have the same sort of, you can pay 1 of each color instead of its casting cost. It's like a built-in Fist of Suns ability, but just specifically on the card. And that's the Bringer cycle. There's 5 of them. Now, the only one we're not going to talk about is the Black Bringer, because for me, I don't allow tutoring cards in the King Cube because of time constraints and other disparities. So the Black Bringer is not allowed in the King Cube. But to get into what Bringers are, we'll start with the Blue Bringer. It's 2 blue, 7 colorless. It's a 5/5 trampler. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can draw 2 cards. This guy is ridiculous, just ridiculous, because you can pay 1 of every mana instead of paying the 9 that it normally costs. That's what I'm talking about. And it's interesting to note, and you guys will see this if you zoom in there on the text box and take a look. For a brief period of time, in a cost-cutting attempt, Wizards of the Coast actually made all the mana symbols black and white. So you can see what a difference it makes. It's far less vibrant. I don't like it. I'm glad that that was a very limited time thing and they returned to actually coloring the mana symbols in the text box. So all the Bringers all cost 7. They are all 5/5 tramplers. They all just have different abilities that trigger during the upkeep. So you have the green one, which is this crystalline one. I love it. He looks like a crystalline rhino. He's so cool. And he makes a 3/3 beast every upkeep. The red one is a crazy crystalline bullhorn monster, and he lets you steal one of your opponent's creatures each turn temporarily for 1 turn and smash them with it. It's just gross. The white one is the one that's the least impactful in the King Cube most of the time in terms of its ability. It's still a 5/5 trampler that you can get out for 5 with the side ability, which is nice, but unless there are artifacts in your graveyard, it doesn't make that much of a difference. But if you get something dumb like a Mind Slaver, like the Bringer, the White Dawn has the potential to be the most broken. All you need is 1 busted artifact in your graveyard, and it becomes good times. So the Bringer cycle, a fantastic include for the King Cube. And you'll notice that most of the focus I've had is on artifacts. I included the bringers because they tied into the fists, but I wanted to keep it tied to the main artifact that we're talking about spoiler-wise. So there's a couple of more key artifacts for your King Cube that are left that come across the 5-color spectrum. Speaking of Sunburst, now this one doesn't activate using 5 red or have any. The reason it cares about 5 red is the Sunburst for the casting, and that's Clearwater Goblet. So it costs 5 mana, and Sunburst, it comes into play with a charge counter for each different color of mana that you use to cast it. So it can come into play with up to 5 charge counters, and you're almost always going to be casting it with 5 charge counters. I think I only ever saw it cast once without 5 charge counters. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may gain 1 life for each charge counter on Clearwater Goblet. This card is ridiculous, just ridiculous. When you put it down on the board, if your opponent has no answer for it, you're just gaining 5 life a turn for free in your upkeep, just incidentally. I'm at 25, I'm at 30, I'm at 35, I'm at 40, I'm at 45, I'm at 50. It gets out of hand. I hate seeing my opponent drop it, and I absolutely love drawing this card because it's wonky broken in the King Cube because of how easy it is to get the 5 colors you need. And speaking of wonky broken because of how easy it is to get the 5 colors you need, let us speak of Legacy Weapon, the card from Apocalypse. 7 casting cost artifact. The original artwork here shows the Skyship Weatherlight with mana coming from the Null Moon flowing through the Legacy Weapon, right? Because the Skyship Weatherlight and a collected assortment of magical artifacts and all these other things come together to create the Legacy Weapon. You can see as the mana's going from the Null Moon through the Legacy Weapon, you can see the prism of different colors that are coming through. So you got your greens and your blues all representing the different colors of magic, and that's it, just obliterating, laying waste to everything beneath it. Like it can basically take care of anything, and it doesn't just destroy it, it removes it from existence. And it only costs 1 of each color to activate this. When this thing goes on the board, it's all over but the crying. Because if you can't handle it, it's like I'm taking your best permanent every turn from you. And it costs 7 to put out, right? So I've put out 7. You're guaranteed a land drop every turn in the King Cube if you want one. Every single turn. That means turn 7 you go Legacy Weapon, and then 3 turns after that you're laying a land, and you're already up to 2 permanents a turn. It gets dumb and out of hand. And another thing I love about the Legacy Weapon is both versions of the artwork. They did a 10th edition, and the 10th edition artwork is awesome too, in a completely different and way more mind-blowing way. It shows you the Legacy Weapon is also constructed using Urza's Power Stone gem eyes, which are still in his head. So you can see Karn holding Urza's head here as part of the Legacy Weapon. And I love the jewels floating up in the air as well. Absolutely insane. I love it. So check out that King Cube stuff. You're gonna need some background if you want to build one of your own, because it's the best format in existence, I guarantee you. Now let's check in with the 6th color of magic.
And together we are the 6th color of magic.
All right, if you haven't already, I say send in a 6 color magic clip. Do it up. Also, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Rogue Deck Builder. He put up a response video to my video from yesterday where he spent well over half an hour just going over point by point everything that I had to say, the things that he agreed with, the things that he disagreed with, and he wanted to add his own perspective to it. And I think it was a well thought out argument against some of what I had to say. So my recommendation is that you go check out his channel. He's criminally undersubbed. The guy does fantastic work, and he knows what he's talking about. That being said, it is time to roll the Golden Scroll. The people who are kind enough to help me on Patreon, thank you very much for that support. And what are we going to do next? Do you want to talk about some more magic cards, some more fun lore? Or you want to come hang out and have a good laugh over on my other channel? New funny video just released. Here we go. And I'm history, baby.